Doing fantastic on this very dreary day outside, but in good spirits,
Gross,
so we're happy.
gross outside. I don't want to leave the house.
I don't blame you. I don't want to leave the house either, and
Well,
we don't have to.
I mean, I've got dogs, so I gotta walk them, which is terrible in the rain because they get all gross, and it's not fun. But other than that, I'm sticking on stimulus TV
Yeah,
inside.
nice. Yeah, here we are. It's good.
Yeah. What are we making today?
So today I'm throwing together some one of my favorite things, some cheddar jalapeno biscuits. Biscuits I feel like are something that is also super easy to make, but one of those things that people are really intimidated to kind of jump into. So I figured it'd be a good demo.
They're easy to make, but they're hard to make well. I've had so many bad biscuits in my life.
Well, I'm going to show the tips and tricks to make a good biscuit because, again, as I keep repeating, baking is all about patience and kind of knowing. I'll talk through everything and like the reasonings behind why I'm doing certain steps and why you will achieve a really good biscuit by doing what I'm doing.
Awesome, awesome. I gotta say, my favorite part of this segment so far has been when you break down like science into things that I can actually understand. It's by far my favorite thing. Also, like, watching the final product makes me super hungry. But like all your like scientific breakdowns are really easy to understand and make a lot of sense. So thank you for that. I'm looking forward to them today.
I mean, it's like I said before, it's like when you understand the whys of ingredients, it makes it a lot easier to troubleshoot problems. And, taking that time to educate myself on the reasons why ingredients do what they do just made, expanded my knowledge that much more and helped me grow as a cook. So, I encourage people to kind of continue to learn. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to teach.
Hell yeah! Well, thanks for teaching us. So let's get in it. What are the ingredients for today?
Okay, so most of the stuff I would say you have in your pantry. The cheddar jalapeno bit, that's a totally optional thing to do. I just really enjoy that mashup. It's really fun. But we got flour, baking soda, salt. I season it with garlic, onion powder, and paprika inside of the dough. An egg, obviously, jalapeno and cheddar. Buttermilk, like my star ingredient so far in like all of my segments, because that stuff is fuego, and a hefty dose of butter, which makes her a really delicious flaky biscuit. So yeah, that's all that we got.
I remember from last episode that if you do not have buttermilk, there is a hack, right?
There is a hack. You're all right. Do you remember the hack?
It's vinegar and milk, which I heard and was like, that's disgusting. That can't be right. She must have messed up. But then I Googled it, and of course you didn't mess up.
No, it's definitely a weird combination, and even so, buttermilk, it's not like something that you're drinking on the reg, so it's buttermilk's kind of essentially gross in and of itself, but yeah, it's a pretty gnarly combination, and it's meant to curdle the milk, but again, it's adding acidity to a very neutral element to allow all of the things that are supposed to happen. So yeah,
buttermilk is actually my pre-workout drink normally.
What?
Yeah, buttermilk before a workout, it's great.
Oh, yeah, it just gets the juices flowing in the right way. But the hack is for every 1 cup of milk, you take out a tablespoon of that milk and replace it with either 1 tablespoon of just like plain white wine vinegar, or distilled white vinegar, or lemon juice to add that acidity into the milk. Let it sit for 5 minutes and you're Gucci.
Yep. Nice. So yeah. No buttermilk, no problem.
No buttermilk, no problem. Just gotta have milk and vinegar and you'll be good.
All right.
Yeah. So should I just kind of like jump into this game?
Yeah, get into it. I'll get out of here and let you do your thing. I'll pop in if I got any questions, maybe read you some comments. But let's do the damn thing.
Yeah, let's do the damn thing. We're gonna hang out. We're gonna bake some stuff. I'm actually joining in and I'm reading the comments as we go. So
okay, you don't need me. Get out of here then.
Get out of here. No, come hang out.
Get away, girl.
But what do I got going on? So I'm making these cheddar buttermilk biscuits. I'm kind of making lunch for me and my roommate simultaneously. So I'm going to be essentially using these biscuits for lunch. So also with that, I'm going to be making, I'm going to show you guys how to make a really simple thing, but some poached eggs. Also one of those things that I feel like people are a little intimidated to get into, but super simple to make with some really delicious bacon and yada yada. So I'm going to just jump into this. So first I'm going to start off by preheating my oven to 425 degrees. That It seems like a very high temperature, but with a lot of bread products, you do bake at high temperatures like that because you initially want to release the steam into whatever product you're baking, and it's going to help with the rise of the bread product. That's also my preferred method of making bacon is to do it in the oven. So I'm also going to be utilizing the 425-degree oven, baking the bacon in there. So it's kind of just like a little 2-for-1 special. So to get started, what do I got? I have my bowl, and I've already measured out all of my ingredients. Again, as I mentioned, mise en place, everything in its place. Before you start any recipe, get your ingredients together, have them all out. Don't go rummaging through your cabinets as you're doing your recipe. It just makes for a nice, more tidy situation as you're going through your recipe. So I'm going to start off, well, let me dwindle it on down here. So I have my mixing bowl here, and there's kind of a couple steps to make a really good biscuit. The first step is you're going to measure all of your dry ingredients into a bowl separately. So I got 2 cups of flour here, just regular all-purpose flour. I have baking soda, so a pretty decent amount of baking soda. Biscuits are inherently very dense. The baking soda is going to help, again, with that leavening agent that the buttermilk is going to counteract. I did just get a question asking if these guys are going to be spicy. Jalapenos, in my opinion, are a very mild spice. They have a kick to it for sure, but when I'm doing, and I'll show you guys, when I'm cutting up my jalapeno, I do make it a point to take out all of the seeds. So I de-seed it, and all of the seeds are what holds the spiciness. It's called capsaicin, and capsaicin is what gives peppers that incredibly spicy kick to it. So by taking out those seeds, I am essentially getting the jalapeno flavor by eliminating a decent amount of that spiciness. So flour, baking soda. I got 2 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon of baking soda. I got 1.5 teaspoons of salt, just regular table salt, kosher salt. To that, I'm also going to season this. And this is, again, just for my liking. This is how I like to season my guys. I got smoked paprika, and I have a little onion and garlic powder blend. I'm going to add that into it. So I'm going to do, let's see. I'm going to do 1/2 teaspoon of each. That looks good. And again, biscuits are very versatile. This base recipe is fantastic, and it's very adaptable to kind of do whatever you want to it. You can add different spices. You can actually make them on the sweet side if you wanted by, maybe glazing it with a little bit of honey or adding some I don't know, chopped fruit into it. That's not really my jam zone. It's definitely, although I'm a pastry chef, I'm definitely gravitate towards the salty side of things. But you can season it with any spices that you want in here. You can put red pepper flakes, garam masala spice, lemon, pepper, whatever you want. So you got these guys in here. And these are all of my dry ingredients. I'm just going to go ahead. I use my hands, obviously, when I am making stuff. Get used to getting a little messy in the kitchen, and I just have fun with it. So upon smelling this, it smells like the paprika and the garlic powder. You can totally eyeball this. You don't have to go too crazy. So got this here. In the meantime, I'm going to set that to the side. So I actually should have done this beforehand, and this is me messing up a little bit, which is totally okay. But the other thing that we're going to have here is our butter. So this butter I just took right from the fridge, and I'm actually going to go ahead and cube that up now. So we're going to be incorporating this butter into what's called a cutting method. And essentially, you're going to be taking these small cubes of butter, slowly cutting it into your dry ingredients. And as you're mixing it, you're going to start breaking down the butter fat, essentially. And you want it to remain relatively on the whole side. You want to break down these cubes into small little pea-sized amounts. And what that's going to do is disperse really beautifully inside of the dough. And that's what gives it those really flaky layers and allows it to rise really beautifully. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to cube my butter. And I can't express this enough too, but chopping your butter or chopping any of your ingredients to the same size is incredibly important. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be cubing it relatively small, because the smaller I'm cubing it and the closer to the size that I eventually want to get it to, the less I'm going to have to mix it, and the less I'm going to be essentially working the butter in, and it's going to be melting as I'm mixing it. So this is just going to go ahead and allow me to kind of get to my end result a little bit faster. So I'm going to take this butter. This is 12 tablespoons of butter here. So I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to cube it up. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and pop it in the freezer while I am mixing the remainder of my ingredients. So I just got these guys, nothing too crazy. I have to say, this bench scraper too, very important tool to have in the kitchen. It's very multi-use. So I'm putting my butter in the freezer. As I take a second, wash up a little bit. And then lastly, in my ingredients, I got my buttermilk here. One of my, favorite ingredients to have in the kitchen. And I have an egg. So it's not a big amount. It's only 1/2 a cup of buttermilk. Sorry, I guess I didn't get my mise en place as good as I did because I'm still kind of like running around the kitchen a little bit. So I got 1/2 a cup of buttermilk here. I got my egg. I'm going to add those two guys together. And again, it's like when you have like ingredients, you can kind of combine those and it's going to just mitigate over mixing things later down the line. So I'm just going to take my egg and my buttermilk, going to whisk that guy together, get it nice and homogenized, and just have that ready to go before get the rest of my mise en place together. So next up, so my mix-ins, I have 1 cup of cheddar cheese. I got 1 jalapeno here. I totally just bought like pre-shredded cheddar. I just cheated a little bit in that regard. Pro tip, if you're going to shred the cheddar yourself, as you're shredding it, take a little bit of flour and mix it into that shredded cheddar. It's gonna prevent the cheddar from clumping together when you're essentially going to be mixing in your biscuit dough. And that's just going to prevent a little bit of a headache later down the line. I'm gonna get a sharpener. This thing is a little sad. So got my jalapeno here. The way that I'm going to deseed this, I'm going to cut it in half. And you can see it exposes the membranes inside of here. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of all of that, like that big chunk in the center. And you can be a little bit more diligent if you want and go onto a bias and kind of cut away at the stem here. Getting rid of all of those seeds. And like I said, this is just going to allow a really beautiful jalapeno flavor without committing to the spiciness behind it. You can totally just eliminate this process if you don't want to have the heat at all. These are delicious biscuits to just have straight up. But again, it's just like little things to add into your mixes that kind of just elevates the flavor of it all. So I'm going to take these guys and do it's just like a small dice on this. So I'm going to run my knife through it. I'm going to do nice long strips with both of these guys. And you want a relatively small bite when you're doing these guys because, you don't want a gigantic chunk of, at least I wouldn't. I would prefer evenly dispersed pieces of pepper that is going through my mix. So I'm going to do a small dice. These guys are yay thick. Where's my camera? Like yay big. I'm just going to run back and do like a nice little small dice on them.
That chopping sound is so satisfying right now.
It's as satisfying as it sounds, I will say. And, when it goes with touching peppers, just make sure to not touch your eyeballs afterwards. You will be really upset if you do. So just go ahead and wash your hands pretty immediately afterwards so you're not paying for it later. I don't know if any of you guys have ever watched that show, Hot Ones. I love that show, and the thing that he always says whenever they're eating hot wings is just stay away from your eyes as much as possible. And they are not wrong. So here I got my sharp cheddar cheese. I'm going to add my jalapenos into it so that when I'm ready to mix, everything is just ready to go together. And again, incredibly versatile. Take out the peppers altogether if you want. If you want, use bell peppers. You can mix in roasted garlic. You can use any cheese that you want. I've used Fontina cheese. I've used Gruyere in the past. All delicious. So I'm going to go ahead, wash my hands really quick. And I'm going to go grab my butter from the freezer. So I got my AP flour here. I got all of my dry ingredients, AP flour, baking soda, salt, and my seasoning. I'm going to go ahead and toss in all of my butter. So like I said, we're going to be doing what's called a cutting method. So I have all of these chunks of butter in here that are relatively close to the size that I want to end up with, but they need to be broken down a little bit. So what I'm going to be doing, and you can use your hands. I have a tool here. that I'm gonna like maybe start by cutting in some of the butter, and I'll probably just retort to using my hands after that. But you could totally use a mixer if you want to. So much butter. That's what makes baked goods delicious. Butter is at no shortage in my house. I have like 10 pounds in my fridge right now. So I'm going to go ahead and start working this butter in. And essentially what you're doing is going to, you know what, I'm not going to even bother using, this is the tool that I have, which is totally used for cutting like butter into pie doughs and everything. And it utilizes like these little cutting mechanisms to start chopping the butter down. I'm just going to go ahead and use my hands to do this. And we're just going to start slowly working the butter in. And as I'm doing this, I'm kind of like massaging the butter, but I'm making it a point to not keep it in my hands for too long because I want to be breaking the butter down into the appropriate sizes, but I don't want to be melting the butter in my hands because, like I said, having really cold ingredients is incredibly important to making a successful, like beautifully puffed up flaky dough. And I would even, I mean, I'm kind of cheating a little bit. I guess I shouldn't be cheating because I am totally teaching you guys, but you know, if I were to be doing this a little bit more diligently, I would have put my buttermilk and my egg back into the fridge. I would have had my butter be like a lot more chilled and almost frozen solid because it would be breaking down the same way. I'm just going to go ahead and keep massaging this. So as I'm doing this, these pieces are starting to break down really nicely. So anywhere between so when you're mixing butter into dough, there's a couple different things that you can look for. There's something called mealy. Mealy literally just is an indicator for the dough to mix to start looking like cornmeal. So you're going to have like almost sand to cornmeal size pieces. That's what's called like the mealy method. I'm going to take these. I'm going to have the majority of that size be to mealy, and then I'm going to go ahead and have the rest of the pieces be anywhere between the size of a pea to like a hazelnut. And again, what that's going to do is as you're mixing this biscuit dough, those little pockets of butter that's inside of it are going to, at the high heat, they're going to melt out. And what you're going to have when those pockets of butter melt out, they're going to essentially start seeping into the dough, but then any remnant water that is in this butter is going to be releasing steam, and that steam is what's going to allow your biscuits to rise really beautifully, and that's how you get those really beautiful flaky layers in between everything, is by allowing that to rise appropriately, allowing the butter to melt out. So you can see I do have pretty varying sizes in here, but again, this is not the end of me mixing this, so I don't want to go ahead and over mix it. So as you can see, I have the majority of my pieces be what's called that mealy size, where it's kind of like coarse sand, but I do have pieces in here that are like anywhere between the size of like a small pea to like a hazelnut size. I'm totally okay with this butter in here like that. So I'm actually going to, because it's a little warm in my kitchen, I'm going to take this mix, I'm going to put it in the fridge for like 5 minutes as I clean up my workstation here, to allow this butter to kind of re-harden again, because I am going to be continuing to mix this further. I don't want this butter to be melting, and again, having a little bit of patience in the kitchen allows it to you know, get the best final product. So I'm going to take this guy, I'm going to pop it in the fridge. Actually, I'm going to pop it in the freezer. So I'm going to clean up my workstation a little bit, because you need to have a clean workstation as you go. Getting rid of my stuff. But I'm going to keep this out. Also to note, I do have another bowl of flour. I am going to be flouring my workspace pretty heavily. You need a decent amount of workspace when you're making biscuits, because you'll see as I'm throwing everything else together, I'm going to, the next steps after this, I'm going to be putting my buttermilk in. That's what's going to hold my dough together really beautifully. And then I'm going to add my mix-ins. After that, I'm going to be turning my dough out onto my workstation here. And I will show you my methodology in regards to making biscuits. You are going to have to work the dough a little bit, and you're going to be creating your layers. I'll kind of explain that as I go. It's a little bit meticulous to try and describe without the visual. You know, a lot of, for me at least, the better parts, I guess I'll pop this back up here. The better parts for me of learning in the kitchen are just seeing things hands-on. That's just the easiest method for me to rationalize why I'm doing things and watching the, like, you know, looking for the context clues, you know, and again, the whys behind what you're doing. And, you know, sometimes it just takes a little bit of, as I've said in my last segment, sometimes you just got to fail to learn from that failure to prevail a little bit later. And I've had a ton of failures in my life in regards to things in the kitchen. Learning from other people's failures is also a really good key, prevents you from having to deal with it. So I would highly suggest that. So on my bench here, I have my flour ready to go. I have my buttermilk ready to go. The other thing I'm going to get set up while I have a couple minutes of downtime. So after my biscuits have come together, I'm going to cut them and I'm going to allow them to rest in the fridge again before baking. But to make it just that much more delicious, we're going to put an egg wash on top of the biscuits. That's going to allow for a really beautiful golden brown color to come onto the biscuit itself. But then I'm going to actually sprinkle the top of my biscuit with a little bit of Parmesan cheese. I'm going to season that parm with some Maldon salt. And I'm probably going to put a little bit of crushed red pepper flakes inside of it. Or, let's see, got like a little spice right next to me. Let's rummage through this really quick. I have some Korean chili flakes. That might be really nice to put on top of these guys. And again, it's just like adding a little bit more layers of flavor. I think I'm going to go with these because these are like not that spicy. They have like a really, I wish you could smell it. They smell so good. It's like kind of sweet as well. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with those. So I'm going to go ahead and get my next step together. So I've got my egg here. I'm going to go ahead and crack that now. So what I'm actually going to do here, whenever you're egg washing something, there are some tips and tricks to like essentially break down the eggs so it's a little bit easier to wash. If you know, eggs are incredible, like they're very coagulated at its natural state essentially. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add like a pinch of salt. You can either add a little bit of salt or a little bit of sugar. By doing that and allowing it to rest for a few minutes, it's going to make this a lot more I guess viscous is a good word, or it's going to liquefy it a little more. Essentially what that's doing, it's going to be breaking down the protein strands that are holding this egg together, and you'll see. I don't really know how else to describe it aside from just saying you will see when it's done. So I'm going to go ahead, mix this guy up. You can see it's like very coagulated right now, but in like, I don't know, by the time I need to use it, it's going to be a lot more at a liquid state that it's just going to make it that much easier to egg wash my dough. So I have that ready to go. Lovely. And then, as I said, I'm going to mix. So I have a little bit of my Parmesan cheese here. I got some of this Korean chili flake. That looks good. You don't have to go too crazy, or you can go as crazy as you want. Doesn't matter. It's your freaking biscuits. So the other thing that I really love about this biscuit recipe, and the same thing that I mentioned when I made the pancakes, I think things to be baking or making during these quarantine times is to make big batches of and allow to put in your freezer and kind of use for later. So these biscuits freeze beautifully. I actually already have like half a dozen of them in my freezer now, and I'm going to go ahead and like freeze the rest of these, whatever I don't give away. And these guys can last in your freezer for like, I don't know, 3 months or so. If you wrap them correctly, you could just bake them right from frozen and have a really delicious product and not have to go out and buy those like kind of silly Pillsbury mixes. These guys are so much better. They do take a little bit of time, but to be honest, if you're buying your ingredients and you're making these yourself, you're going to be saving money anyway. It just takes a little bit more effort to come to the end goal. So I have these guys here. I have my Maldon salt that it's like a nice, beautiful, flaky salt from London. I have that set to the side and kind of just ready to go for my next step. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my dough from the freezer. So I got this guy here. And just that little bit of resting period allowed my butter to just kind of re-solidify, which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to create a well in the middle of my bowl, and I'm going to add my buttermilk and egg. So this is, as I said, half a cup of buttermilk and 1 egg mixed together. Pour that right into the center. And I'm going to use the fork to kind of initially get this started mixed up. And it's okay if you make a mess. So this dough, like I said, we're going to have to turn it out onto the work surface and work it a little bit. So I would say the majority of this has come together. Since I'm adding more ingredients, I'm not going to wait until everything has been fully added. I'm going to add my mix-ins now and allow the rest of my liquids and my dry mix to come together while I'm adding these together. So like I said, here I got a cup of cheddar cheese. You can use any cheese. I have 1 jalapeno at a medium dice, a small dice. I'm going to go ahead and dump that in. And I'm going to switch to using my hands to finish mixing the rest of this dough. And again, you don't want to work it too much. The more you work it, the more likely you are to start melting out the butter. So I'm going to go ahead and just start turning this over on itself. And it's messy. It's going to be sticky. And we're going to have to work this dough a little bit more anyway. So just go ahead and get comfortable with your hands kind of being a disgusting mess, because that is what we are looking for. So this dough, I would say, is pretty set already. Very, very sticky. But like I said, we're going to turn it out onto a floured surface. Wash my hands really quick. We're going to turn this out onto a floured surface, and we're going to take this dough from a very sticky state where it's like very tacky between my fingers, and we're going to make it so that it is no longer sticky to the touch, but still has a lot of moisture inside of the dough. So I'm going to heftily flour my work surface here. I also have a rolling pin handy. If you don't have a rolling pin, you can go ahead and use a wine bottle. I've used that plenty of times, both at home and at work when my rolling pins are all used up. And I'm going to turn this out onto my work surface, making sure to get every little bit of dough that is scraped inside of here. And essentially what you're going to start doing is just turning the dough over onto itself and just kneading it a slight bit. It doesn't take a lot of flour to get this dough to where it needs to be. I would say just this alone, say this is maybe a couple teaspoons worth of flour. What I'm looking for is that my dough is kind of no longer sticking to my work surface here. I'm adding a little bit, instead of adding flour directly onto the dough, I'm adding flour onto my work surface, or I'm adding flour onto my hands. And that little bit alone is going to allow the dough to come together. Yes, there's lots of hand washing going on here, COVID friendly. Also, this is baked at such a high heat that it would kill any bacteria inside of it. So my dough here, again, now that I'm touching this dough, it's not transferring onto my hands. It's not as sticky as it was when I just had mixed it together. And again, I had maybe taken 4 tablespoons worth of flour and had mixed that into itself. So I went ahead and I cleared off my workstation. I am taking kind of, this is working on a bench. This is just called bench flour. It's pretty self-explanatory. I am clearing that out, and I'm going to get some new flour to add to my bench, because now I have little bits of hardened flour pieces from being moistened from my dough mix that I don't really want to mix back into here. So I'm going to go ahead, dust it with a little bit more flour. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how to, this is where the flaky layers are created in biscuits. So whenever you're rolling dough, you want to be pre-shaping your dough essentially. So what I mean by that is if you're rolling out a pie crust that needs to be a circle, you're not going to start out with a rectangle. You're going to start out with a circle. But here I want a rectangle because I want to be rolling it out into long enough, at a long enough length, and I'm going to be doing folds on it. And these folds are going to be what's creating the layers inside of my biscuit dough. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to roll this out to maybe an inch in size. If you feel it's a little sticky, just add a slight bit of flour at a time. You don't want to go too crazy. So what I'm going to do here, I have about the length that I want. You don't have to do anything too specific, but here I'm going to be doing a tri-fold on my biscuit dough. So literally what that means is you're going to just fold it in 2/3. And this is going to start creating these layers. This is 1 layer of dough that I'm making. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to roll it out again. And if you feel that your biscuits are getting a little bit too warm, again, put them back in the fridge, let it rest for 5-10 minutes. That is just going to make your product that much better. don't be afraid to like roughhouse it. If you're picking your dough up and it's sticking aggressively to your table, just flour your bench a little bit more. I would say one thing when it comes to baking, it's just like really trusting your instincts. If something's sticky, that probably means it needs a little bit more flour. If something seems like it's little like way too dry, it definitely just needs more moisture. You know, the environment that you're in definitely affects your dough. Like it's really humid out today, so my dough is going to stay a lot more moistened and at the moisture level that I want than if it was like a really dry day in the middle of the winter. So I have my dough here. I'm rolling it out again, and I'm going to do another tri-fold onto this biscuit dough. Literally just taking it, folding it into thirds. I'm going to dust my flour a little bit more, and I'm going to do it one more time. So I'm going to roll it out. What I'm doing after I fold it, I'm turning it so that the seam side is perpendicular to me, and I'm going to roll it out the opposite way from where I had just folded it. And as you're doing this, like, it's kind of hard to tell, but as I'm stretching this dough, I can feel the gluten has started to develop. There's like a give to the dough as I'm rolling it out, and those are the gluten strands starting to strengthen inside of this dough as well, which is a good indicator of a well-mixed dough. So I got my third rectangle, and I'm going to do my last tri-fold. So again, literally just folding it into thirds, just like yay. And at this point, this baby has to rest for maybe 10 minutes in the fridge, which I'm going to go do that now. So I got this guy here. I'm just going to take my cutting board. I'm going to pop this dough. I'm going to flour the cutting board just a slight bit so it doesn't stick. I'm going to allow this to rest. You know, as you're mixing this dough, like I said, you can kind of feel the give that the dough has and how much gluten has developed in it. If you were to try and roll this out now, the dough would just kind of start shrinking back up on itself because the gluten is, for more or less of a better word, it's kind of just agitated. It needs to relax. The gluten needs to relax so that the dough can stretch out again later. If you're ever working with doughs, I'm going to just talk and put this in the fridge. If you're ever working with doughs and you feel like it's constricting back onto you too much, that just means that the gluten needs to rest. And literally taking 10 minutes to allow the gluten to rest is going to make for that much better of a product. So I'm going to wash my hands again. Okie dokie. And we're back to my base. So I'm going to clean up my workstation a little bit, and I'm going to start kind of setting up my next step. So cheddar buttermilk biscuits. I'm making lunch with it, and you guys are going to watch me make me and my roommate's lunch essentially, because what else are we doing? And I got to fill up this downtime with something else. So the rest of my meal that I'm going to be making with this, I'm going to make like a small, really simple salad. I just have like a power greens mix inside of my fridge right now. I'm going to make a quick garlic aioli, which is super delicious and super easy to throw together. With that, I'm going to have a poached egg and some bacon. So I'm going to show you guys my methods for making that stuff. Just cleaning up my workstation here. So I picked up this really bougie bacon at the grocery store, mostly because it's all that they had, but this brand is really fantastic. We actually use this at my job. They have incredible pork, incredible chickens and turkeys. It's from a place called Heritage Farms. I would highly suggest that their products are just incredibly superior. So whenever I'm making bacon, I prefer to cook it in the oven versus using a skillet stovetop for two reasons. One, whenever I'm toggling a lot of tasks in the kitchen, I can just throw it in the oven and do a really large batch size. You can fit almost an entire package on a sheet tray. And it cooks in like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. Takes a little bit longer, but I think the product comes out a lot more even. And like I said, you can toggle a lot more tasks in the kitchen instead of having to babysit it on the stovetop. So I'm going to go ahead and get that set up now. So I have a small sheet tray ready to go. You can go ahead and, if you have one of those, like, what the hell are they called? Like those drying racks, essentially, like, or like the things that you, Oh my God, I am having a massive brain fart, but you can put it onto like a perforated sheet tray to have it be lifted off of the pan and allow the oil to be dripping out underneath it. And that's going to make for a very non-greasy bacon, which is ideal in my opinion. But I don't have one of those, so I am going to just put it directly on the pan. How the hell do I open this package? Just gonna rip it like a monster. So really good signs of bacon, in my opinion, when you're looking at the package and you're trying to choose bacon from the store, if you can see the backside of it, you don't want to see an incredible amount of fat. When you see all of that fat, essentially what that means is that as the bacon is cooking down, it's going to like shrivel down to absolutely nothing, because as it's cooking, the fat's going to render out. And that's what, like, if you get, you know, for lack of a better term, really crappy bacon from the store, and you get this beautiful strip of it, you put it in the oven or you put it on your stovetop and it shrinks down to nothing. That's just, the fat content is just insane on that. So when you're looking for bacon, turn it to the backside, try and find pieces that aren't incredible. Like if it's more than halfway just fat, go for another brand. Spend a little bit more money, get a better product. So I am going to cut open my package. And I'm just going to give it enough wiggle room. I have it down here. I'm just going to give it enough wiggle room on the sheet tray so that it bakes evenly. You can pack it together actually, because this stuff will shrink a little bit. And if you're a smarter person than I am, you would have put aluminum foil on the sheet tray first for easy cleanup. And I'm a ding dong, so you know I get to scrape bacon fat off of the sheet tray. So, you know, put some foil down. Be smart about it. So that guy's good to go. So I'm gonna wait a few minutes. Thanks. Just a little bit of it. Let me be a ding dong today, okay? Just a little bit of a ding dong. So I have this ready to go. I'm actually going to put this in around the same time as my biscuits, because the biscuits only take like 12 to 15 minutes to cook. This is going to take about 15 to 20 minutes to cook. So I'll probably put this in a few minutes beforehand. And again, it's going to depend. You just have to watch your product. It could take anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, depending on how thick cut your bacon is, how much fat is in the bacon. So never hold cooking times to a full credence. You know, just learn what to look for when checking your product. So I have this guy here. I'm going to put it to the side. Next up, let's see, what am I going to do next? I'm going to make my quick garlic aioli. Really, really simple to do. So what I'm going to do with that, I have so for this guy, all you need, I really like QP mayonnaise. I think it's a really fantastic product, and I like the viscosity of it a lot better than like Hellmann's mayonnaise, but by all means use whatever you got. You're gonna need a clove of garlic, a little bit of lemon, salt, black pepper, and a microplane if you have one. Where's my microplane? So a microplane is this guy here. It's a really fantastic product to have in the kitchen. It's really good for, you know, I use it for garlic. I use it for ginger. It's typically used in a pastry side for like nutmeg or other harder spices. But I have this for many different uses. So I'm going to take my head of garlic. I'm just going to get all of the skin off of it. Essentially, you're just using raw garlic for this. And you can make really small batches at a time. It's like completely, you do big batches, small batches, and it lasts for a decent amount of time in your fridge. So I got rid of all of the skin around my garlic. Grab my bowl. I don't need a big one. So I'm going to take, I mean, I'm not going to need a massive amount of this. I'm going to maybe take like a quarter cup of mayonnaise. There's like a third of a cup, it's fine. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to microplane my garlic into it. Up to you how much garlic you want. I'm a garlic lover, so I'm going to go for almost a whole clove. Got all of that deliciousness on the backside. You're going to take that guy off. And you're going to aggressively mix it in. And this is just like, I don't know, a really simple condiment. It just elevates your food a lot. So you're going to take that. You're going to do a little bit of lemon juice to season it. You're going to season it with lemon juice, salt, and black pepper. So I would say like a teaspoon's worth of lemon juice. An aggressive pinch of salt. Maybe even a little bit more salt. And a hefty amount of black pepper. Mix that guy out. And then taste it. More salt. All right, this guy's good to go. It's going to be really delicious with the salad and the poached egg. All right, cleaning up my workstation as I go. God, I gotta admit, the one thing that I'm hating about this quarantine and how much I'm cooking is just how much I'm doing freaking dishes. Just nonstop. I guess I put this on myself. Can you lick the batter? By all means, whatever you want. I gotta say, raw biscuit dough might not be the best batter to lick, but yeah, YOLO, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my biscuit dough. It's rested quite nicely inside of the fridge. I can feel that the dough is cold, which is kind of what I'm looking for. If you have more time, by all means, let it rest even longer, but I kind of want to just start getting this in the oven. So I'm going to flour my surface a little bit, and I'm going to roll this out again. I want to pre-shape my dough because I don't want to be working more than I have to. So pre-shaping the dough just allows me to extract the results a little bit faster. So I have a rectangle, and I'm going to roll this out to be about 1 inch thick. Because these guys rise quite a bit in the oven. So I'd say this is good. I got this about this size here. Yeah, I'm going to be posting the recipe. Make sure that you guys are, one, following the Stimulus page on Twitch here so that you guys can be not only seeing what I'm doing, but there's plenty of other amazing content that is on the Twitch feed. But also follow, I would say, Stimulus on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Torkster. I post my recipes after every single one of these guys. And I also have on my page all of the recipes that I've done so far. So make sure that you're following so that you can get these recipes. And they're incredibly accessible. And if anything's ever confusing to you, by all means, please message me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So at this point here, the biscuit dough is ready to be popped into the oven. You can be, cutesy if you want and punch out little circles, but, I would say get the best of your yield and just cut it into squares. So I'm going to run it down the middle. I'm going to just use my bench scraper here. And you want nice sharp cuts. You don't want to be doing, like sawing at it. Because when you do these sharp cuts, that just allows your biscuit dough to rise that much more beautifully. So I did a really crappy cut, and that's totally fine. It's all good. So I'm just going to measure these out into like 8 biscuits worth. You can do smaller, you can do bigger. The world is your oyster. And I got my sheet tray here. And I'm going to pop these guys right into the sheet tray. You can put them together. You don't have to space them out that much because when they grow upwards, not outwards that much. So you can fit all 8 of these on this one tray. And honestly, this dough, it's kind of hard to tell, but the dough is this really beautiful, like almost sunset orange color from the paprika that's inside of it. And it just smells really, really good. So I have all of my biscuits ready to go. I have my egg wash here that, since sitting has come to this like really easy to spread consistency, which is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the egg wash all over the tops of these guys. And that's going to do 2 things. As I mentioned before, it's going to add a really beautiful crust on the outside of the biscuit. But since I am putting extra seasoning on top of that, this is going to allow the seasoning to stick really nicely and bake over the top. So since I'm putting in a little bit of Parmesan cheese, the Parmesan cheese is going to caramelize and get nice and crisped up on the outside, only adding to like that really beautiful, super deep, dark Maillard reaction that I am looking for. So I got my biscuits here. I got my seasoning mix here again. This is just Parmesan cheese and some Korean chili flake. I'm going to go ahead and pretty generously top each one of these. Lovely. I'm going to pop my bacon into the oven to kind of get a little bit of a head start for my biscuits, since this will take about 5 minutes longer. And then I got my Maldon salt. By all means, use whatever you got. I love Maldon salt, and I use it pretty religiously in my household. As I said, if Maldon representatives are watching, please sponsor me. I love you. We use it all the time in my kitchen and at home. So I'm putting a pretty hefty amount on the top of this. I would say the inside of the dough, although it's seasoned nicely with like paprika and the garlic powder, there's not too much salt in it, so you can get a pretty hefty dosage of the salt on top. It's going to add like a really beautiful crunch to it. So these guys are ready to go, and I'm going to pop them in the oven. So these are going to take about 12 to 15 minutes. I'm going to pop my screen back up here. They don't take that long to cook at all. 12 to 15 minutes is really it. Again, never hold too much credence in cooking times. It's about learning about your product, seeing what you're looking for when you're working with stuff. So 12 to 15 minutes, it can take a little longer, can take a little bit less time, depending if my dough is super cold. And if it was coming straight out of the freezer, it could take up to 20 minutes. Because my dough is a little bit more at room temperature, it's probably going to take a little bit less time, but it's just about understanding your product. So I'm going to, again, clean up my stations, get any of the excess flour off. All right, we're going to get to poaching a freaking egg to wrap up this beautiful lunch that I got going on. So I already have a saucepan with water inside of it, and I'm going to crank that heat up. My burner will turn on. So I'm going to turn this up to a really high heat. I want it to be coming to pretty much a full boil. So 2 keys, or I can't count how many little tips I have for poached eggs. I'm just going to roll them off my tongue as I go. So a few things that I like to do. Poaching an egg is literally just cooking an egg in water. What I really like about poached eggs is that you have like that beautiful either jammy or still like liquefied yolk without needing to like pan fry it or anything. So there's no need for oil. You can just cook it really nicely in this water. So a couple things. One, some people salt the water before putting the egg inside. I'm going to say that is a no-go. Don't put salt in your water. As we saw when doing the egg wash, when you put salt in egg, it breaks down those proteins inside of the egg. So if you salt your water and you're putting your egg inside of the water to start poaching, the egg proteins are going to break down pretty immediately, and that's what's going to kind of like pull out the egg whites to, instead of creating like this beautiful little dolloped egg deliciousness. So don't salt your water. Number 2, people do put vinegar in the water. I personally don't bother. It does have a use in it. The vinegar inside of water, essentially what it does when you put the egg whites inside, it immediately starts coagulating the eggs to encapsulate the yolk inside of the whites. So it is a really useful trick. I personally don't love it because, one, I just think it's a redundant step. If you kind of just watch it a little bit, you'll make a really beautiful poached egg. But I do find, and I've been like to restaurants that do this, that they'll just over vinegarize their water, and then the egg whites kind of get this like slight back note of like really like just white distilled vinegar taste, and I'm not personally a fan of that. So I omit that process altogether. So for me, I just get my water at a really high temperature. I have it at a rapid boil. My last tip and trick for making a good poached egg, and I'll just show it to you now. So 1, never crack your egg directly into the pot. Always crack your egg into a separate little ramekin or bowl. That's just going to give you a lot more control. It's going to prevent you from like plodding your egg into the water. 1, you might burn yourself. 2, you can break the yolk, which is obviously not ideal. But easing it into the water and swirling it around in the water allows for the egg whites to start cooking around the yolk, which is going to give you that really beautiful, cute little egg that you were looking for. So what I personally do I totally just dropped something. What I do in the kitchen, and it might seem a little bit redundant, but it totally helps, especially if your eggs are a little bit older. As you probably know from experience, when you crack an older egg, the egg whites, there's like, I'd say like 20% of it is super liquid, like pretty much the viscosity of water, and just kind of drips out everywhere. And that's what creates a really ugly poached egg. So what I do, I get a little bit of a fine sieve. Again, maybe just a redundant task, but I literally crack my egg right into it and just allow that excess liquid to drip out. It's not even a lot, but that excess that is coming out is just gonna make for that much more of a nice product. So I'm getting rid of all of that. And then I'm gonna have my egg ready to go in this cute little ramekin. Also, my kitchen smells amazing. So I would highly suggest making this recipe at home. And like I said, it's really easy to throw together. You know, I'm making this meal in less than an hour. And you can freeze it. So it's all good. Whoa. And they're growing like so much. So I'm gonna, let's see if I can pop this off and show you guys a little reveal right now. So these guys have grown pretty significantly already. And they're popping up quite a bit, which is like exactly what I'm looking for. So it's only got like 5 minutes left on this. It's like happening so freaking quick. So I guess I'll just talk you through the poached egg situation while I'm waiting for my water to come up to a boil. I'm gonna do two things as I'm doing it. I'm gonna take off the heat. Excuse me, I'm gonna take the lid off. I'm going to take a ladle or a spoon or whatever, and I'm going to kind of create like this vortex for the water. And essentially what that's going to do, I'm going to pour my egg into that like little vortex. And as that's moving around, it allows the outside of the egg white to start to coagulate and cook. And just like I said before, it encapsulates that yolk. So it allows it to just cook a little bit more evenly and promote the shape that essentially you want when you're making a poached egg. It seems like a lot of work. It's like, but these little things just make a really good end product. And when you get into those habits, it doesn't seem that strenuous, you know? They grew up. My babies grew up. I'm so proud. Okay. Whoa. It's really windy outside and it's like blowing my flame out. It's crazy. Okay, so what else can I get ready while we're waiting? Baking is like a lot of wait time, and usually I'm a lot more talkative, but today my brain's kind of like not working so well, so we don't have that much to say.
Even Mondays, it's Monday, you know? Like, even when it's not a Monday, it's a Monday. Your body knows.
I know, dude. It's like, I don't know where I am anymore. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so a very cosmic process. Indeed so. Cooking can be as cosmic as you want to make it. All right, so I got my power greens here. And as this comes out, I'm just going to make a little plate for myself for lunch because I can. So I might as well start doing a plate up now because I got some time to kill anyway while my biscuits are finished baking and my egg is in the midst of starting up. How are we doing on time? I got like 15 minutes. Oh my God. Yeah, okay. Thumbs up. Thumbs up from the producer. So I got my my little power greens here. I always have these in the house. I really enjoy like a little breakfast salad more often than not. Like I really do love like, I guess it's like a very French style breakfast, but you get some power greens, like a really nice vinaigrette, and just like a poached egg. It's like a really easy and delicious breakfast to have. So I always have these guys. If I'm not making like a little breakfasty salad for myself, I am putting it into my smoothies. So recommend. I'm going to season this very lightly with some olive oil and salt. That's all I put on it, and I think it's super delicious and simple. Maybe a little bit of lemon juice, but I can't express this enough. And I guess I have time to kill some of this ranch for a little bit. But olive oil, have good olive oil, people. Don't only stick to just like a really basic cooking oil. We have like 3 different olive oils in my household. I have like some store-bought, I don't even remember the brand name of it, but I got like some store-bought olive oil. That's what I use to do my cooking with in my saute pans. But I have like some really delicious fresh pressed cold extraction olive oil. We use this religiously at work, and the stuff is fire. It's mostly used as like a finishing oil. You're not going to ever use this for cooking. If you do, you're sacrilegious. But it's expensive, but it's worth that expense. It's like, when you just invest in really quality products. Like, are you going to buy Georgie or are you going to buy some Belvedere if you want a really good martini? You're not going to drink Georgie because Georgie's crap. You're going to buy that Belvedere. This is like the Belvedere of olive oil. So, keep a bottle of really good stuff in your pantry. Use it for finishing. Use it for like your vinaigrettes or your salads or finishing on top of a beautiful steak. It's so worth it. And like the complexity of flavors that come from these are just unbelievable. So I didn't really gain an appreciation for this until I worked in an Italian restaurant, but since I have been converted to that dark side, it's hard to not always keep it handy. So invest. I promise it's worth it.
Okay, but also shout out to Georgie for getting me through my teenage years,
Oh God. I can't hate on it. But I'm happy that we graduated from, plastic leaders to, maybe a little bit better.
Yeah.
Georgie, if you're watching, sponsor us. Especially if you're 70% alcohol or more, because we can use you guys as some hand sanitizer. Okay, so
Did you catch our hand sanitizer tutorial the other day?
I did watch the hand sanitizer tutorial, and I went to CVS myself to try and buy some rubbing alcohol, and they're completely sold out. So I wasn't able to make it. I have a little bit of rubbing alcohol on reserve, but I'm like keeping that for like really extreme moments. But I'm like at a point where I'm about to go and try and buy some freaking Everclear and see if, I can sanitize myself with that. It'd probably work.
You can do it.
Oh God, that's some apocalyptic doomsday stuff. Okay, so I'm going to switch my camera over to my pot. My pot is at a rapid boil. Lovely, exactly what I'm looking for. So 2 things with poached eggs when you're cooking them. 1, have everything ready. I have my egg ready here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start making my vortex literally by just like swirling the water around. If you ever had a pool growing up and you got to make like those fucking I shouldn't be cursing on this, should I? Making tornadoes in the pool, that's what you want to do. So I'm creating that vortex right now. With that vortex, I'm going to put my egg right in the center. And what that's doing, it's just kind of, again, pre-shaping my egg so that it's that beautiful shape that I want. It's dancing. It's so cute. And now I'm going to put my top on. I'm going to shut my heat off. The residual heat inside of that is going to allow it to cook, which is exactly what I'm looking for. And it will be ready in 5 minutes. With that being said, I'm going to check my biscuits. Oh, you know what? I'm going to continue to be mobile because I can. So, checking on my biscuits. Oh, baby, they're looking beautiful, pretty sexy, I have to say. Let's check on my bacon. Bacon also looking beautiful and sexy. Probably going to need a few more minutes, but I'd say that 5 minutes is going to be good. So these guys have grown beautifully. You can actually already start to see the layers that are forming inside of them, but I do want the outsides to be a little bit more, have a little bit more color on them. So I'm going to allow that. I just reset my timer for 5 minutes to have my egg cook. Hopefully everything, and I timed this correctly, is all going to come out at the same time and I can enjoy my lunch. So I have my little salad already done here. Got my greens, a little bit of good olive oil, a little pinch of salt on the top of that, and some right for my black pepper. Another habit to get into, always put your crap back where you picked it up from. Because if you don't, you won't know where the hell it is. So black pepper. Beautiful. I guess I'll continue to kind of just rant in the meantime. But I'm going to say one beautiful thing that I've had the luxury of during this quarantine process is right outside of my door here, my neighbors have been building a beautiful garden. Like, literally, this guy has incredible flower beds. I don't even know if you can see like that right there. That is all kale. But he like built an irrigation system for all of his flower beds. He has like carrots growing, all of these herbs and kale. It's a treat to watch, and I think his neighbor next door is starting to like follow suit there and also make a little bit of a garden, and I love it. It's really a nice switch up from what backyards can be in the boroughs, which I feel like sometimes can be quite scary. Okay, guys, we're like kind of coming up to a wrap with this delicious lunch that I'm making for myself. So again, cheddar jalapeno biscuits. Can you hear me now? Yeah? Here they were a little muffled. So yeah, cheddar jalapeno biscuits, super easy to make. I will post the recipe on my Instagram. Follow me at Twerkster, and you guys can just keep this in, your backlog for making any time. Freezes beautifully. You can bake them from frozen. And yeah, just, that little extra step. It's really not a hard recipe to make. Just takes a little bit of patience, like everything good in the kitchen, or anything good in general takes a little bit of patience. So we got 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. My egg is looking excellent.
Aha!
Aha! Oh God, it hurts me. Oh, my biscuits. God, toggling this camera is not working in my favor. Okay, so I'd say my bacon is done. That's looking beautiful and sizzly. Crispy, crunchy, what we want. My biscuits, oh my God, these beautiful babies. Love you. I'm gonna let them chill for another minute until we get where you're going. Also, I'm realizing while looking back on the camera feed that I totally need to clean my oven. So maintain the health of your kitchen appliances, people, and don't be like me. Don't be embarrassed by what it looks like. So I'm gonna take my bacon. I'm gonna blot it on some paper towel. I always recommend doing that with any products like that because I don't know, eating that excess oil is really nasty. It doesn't taste very good, so. But you can totally save that bacon grease and use it to cook other things later. Pop it into a can and use that rendered fat for sauteing veggies. Is that ironic? Sauteing veggies and bacon fat? It's fine. So I got these guys here. They're perfectly cooked in my opinion. So nice crispy bacon. I'm popping that down onto my paper towel. My windows are open and I feel like my neighbors think I'm crazy because I'm just holding strands of bacon and looking at them with immense pleasure. It's okay. Yes. Okay. So my little egg yolk. I'm gonna take this camera guy. And he should be beautifully and perfectly cooked. So it's kind of hard because I'm holding the camera in one hand, but beautiful shaping on it. There's no there's not a lot of remnant egg whites that have been cooked out because I did strain my egg out beforehand. I guess I'll just pop in the ceramic and I got a beautiful this is how I like my eggs. I don't like the insides completely liquefied. I like a jammy egg on the inside and when I open it, maybe a little bit of that excess yolk will stream out. But yeah, so I got my plate set up here. I'm gonna pop my egg. Whoop. He slipped right off. I'm gonna pop my egg on there. Looking good. We're gonna pop this back in here. I can use both of my hands. So got my egg, my very hot egg, right on my little salad. I'm gonna dress them up. A little bit of black pepper, a little bit of Maldon salt. This is just my ideal breakfast. This is how I dress my stuff up. A little bit of paprika. And then my go-to, I have this aggressive amount of everything bagel seasoning. And I put this crap on everything. So I'm going to go ahead and put some of that on because we can. A little bit of everything bagel seasoning right onto my poached egg. I got my bacon, my beautiful bacon, like yay. And I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna pop my guys. Well, let me clear my stove really quick so I can actually do this with a little bit of room. Gonna pop my biscuits out the oven. They look amazing. They smell amazing. And they are flaky. They are golden brown. And like, my lord, I just, like, yum. They're really freaking hot though, but I'm gonna just, luckily for me, I don't have a lot of feeling in my fingertips from burning them so much, so I can hold on to it. Can I? Yeah, I can. Can I? I can. Ow. Maybe not as well as I thought I could. Are we back on my side? Okay, we're back on my side. So, oh, it looks so good. So I am pretty much a wrap. I made my garlic aioli, and I made that to put in the center of my biscuit. Honestly, my biscuits are gonna need to cool a little bit before I can show off the layers, but I'm just gonna go ahead and like crack into it right now so y'all can see. But like they're literally just like the layers are kind of created itself. Oh, can you see that steam? Whoa, baby! It looks, oh, goddamn, so good. God, I'm happy. I love these biscuits. So yeah, that steam, it's just like, you can't beat it. It's just freaking gorgeous. And there's just beautiful flaky layers inside of it. It's a beautiful, like almost saffron color from the paprika inside, and it just smells so good. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna like smear just a smidgen of my garlic aioli right inside of it because, you know, there's not enough butter in this. I just need a little bit more fat to, you know, round out the freaking flavor. So add a little bit of my garlic aioli to it. I'm just gonna say cheers to you guys.
Hey, hey!
It's so good. So good.
That looks amazing.
We have a beautiful little spread here, done in less than an hour. Where's my fork? Do I have a fork in my kitchen? I have a fork. I guess we can try and see if there's like a jammy reveal. So my egg is definitely on like the more medium side, but that's how I like my poached eggs. It's like jammy and beautiful in the center, a little bit of liquid coming out of it, a little bit of yolk coming out of it. And this is just like what I want for breakfast or what I want for lunch. So there we go. Need to know how to make biscuits. Need to know how to make poached eggs. And you have a beautiful brunch in less than an hour.
That looks incredible.
I have to say, it's a masterpiece made by yours truly.
So modest, so modest,
so
amazing.
We're staying zen in this beautiful quarantine. So here we go.
Victoria, thank you so much. That was informative and fun.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm here for. So, you guys want to say my turn? So I was gonna say, like I said, follow Stimulus on here on Twitch so you can see all the great feeds that they have going on, so you can see what I'm doing up on my next segment. Follow me on Instagram. I'm going to be posting the recipe within the next hour of how to make these beautiful biscuits. If you guys have any questions, reach out to me. Happy to answer any and all baking related questions. It's my favorite thing to do is to educate further and teach you guys the whys of cooking. So, you know, stay tuned for the next segments to come. And I'm happy that you guys all joined me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yes, it was. Thank you so much. And we're back next Monday, right?
I believe so, yeah. I got something cooking up for you guys.
Tune in. We're going to make more delicious things. Love you guys. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Bye.